Do you have problems understanding the Bible? Here's the life hack you need more than anything else. The verse in question that I was asked about is 1 Timothy 2, verses 3 through 7. If you don't have Bible software like Logos or something like that, I would go to BibleHub.com, and there you can just put in the book of the Bible, the chapter, and then you can go in and see what the chapter is. So the verses in question, verses 3 through 7. So what did I do? I copied those, I pasted those over into a document side by side so that I could start writing down my questions and begin looking up my answers. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put them in sentences. For example, verse 3, which is here, is not a complete sentence. So in good grammar, we need to put them in full sentences just so that you can understand and see where the independent and dependent clauses are to understand how things fit together. Basic grammar, basic English stuff. So out of the 5 verses, there's really only 3 sentences. So the next thing I'm going to do is, as I begin to read through it, I'm going to write down my questions. And so I've done that. In the first sentence, you look at this and it comes up to, there's some questions. First of all, he starts with this. What is this? Well, you need to go back and look at verses 1 and 2 so that you can better understand what this is. What is Paul referring to? And why is it good and pleasing? You keep reading, who desires all people to be saved. Well, what does that mean? Now, you may know that, but others don't. And so it's something that you need to at least address in your study, to think about what does it mean to be saved? And isn't everyone that way? I mean, he says that he desires all people to be, so therefore not everyone currently is. So these are some things that you need to think through as you're studying the scripture. You keep reading the next sentence, you get some more questions. Why does Paul state one God and one mediator? Well, maybe that was a question that needed answering at that time. Maybe people are thinking there's many gods, many ways to heaven, many ways to make yourself right with God. I think that's true today, and it was true then. And so Paul needed to state that. But you need to ask the question, because somebody may ask you the question. So Jesus is the one. Okay, so what did he do? Well, he gave himself as a ransom. Well, what does that mean? What does it mean that he gave himself? What does it mean that he was a ransom? Answering these questions helps you unpack some of the meaning behind everything. And finally, for this I was appointed a preacher. Well, what is this? For what? What were you appointed for? To what? What does this refer to? Well, it refers back to 5 and 6. What is a preacher? What's an apostle? Why would he need to state he's telling the truth and not lying? These are all questions that just rise up. And so now you need to go back and answer these questions, and it begins to help you understand more about what's going on in these particular verses. So now that you have all that put together and some of the answers that you've decided upon, what do you do next? Well, how do these sentences fit together? And again, we're going to do some more grammar work, okay? And that's really a lot of what this study is studying it, and how do these sentences fit into the paragraph? How does that paragraph fit into the chapter or other chapters? And this is finding, when you hear somebody say, read for the context and look for context clues, this is what we're doing. You have the sentence, then you have a paragraph, then you have a chapter, then you have the whole letter. Now, I know sometimes we can't dive into reading the whole book. What if somebody giving you something in a larger book? Okay, so, but how does it fit into the framework of the letter? And even in BibleHub.com, you can answer some of those questions. Turn to BibleHub.com and you see you have the chapter. If you want to start looking at the verses and looking up different things, you see where each blue number is a link. So we click on that. I would choose either New Living Translation or English Standard version. Those are very good in their versions, and to look at those. But so what you have here is, how do all the different versions state this particular sentence or verse, if you will. Over here, you've got how it is in the middle of 2 or 3 different verses, okay? And then some cross references. And these cross references simply serve to help expand the concept of what's going on and let the Bible speak into itself. And that way, you let the Bible speak for itself. However, we do need to understand that these cross-references are not divinely ordained. This is something that man has used to help, to maybe help guide us in different ways. So you can look those up and just kind of get an idea of, okay, what is that trying to say in regard to the verse? Now, it's not going to tell you this is what that verse means in here. It's just saying how maybe some of the Greek words would have been used in some other places. Speaking of Greek words, you can scroll on down and you can find these different Greek words, all the words that are used in the sentence. And sometimes it's helpful if you have some of the ones that pop out to you, like pleasing. What does that mean? We know what it means now, but what did it mean then? So you can look this up and see it's worthy to be received. And so when he's saying that this, which is the praying for everybody, it's good, which means it's properly beautiful but chiefly good, and it's pleasing, that means it's worthy to be received. So praying in the way that he described is proper and worthy in the sight of God. Now, see this right here, it highlights it, it goes to verse 4. And so you can just keep going through the verse and begin to answer some of these questions. And as you read the different scriptures and you handle that, and you go down and you do a little study with the Greek and what these different words mean in the original language, what we are getting to is, what did it mean for the people who heard it first? This is very important because we need to do our best to find out what it meant for the original listener. And so, okay, so we have verse 5. We can go through and do all of these things, and you can see the different references, the cross-references that help you expand your knowledge and thought about what that verse might mean in other cases, as well as continue to look at the Greek words for each of those. I'll let you go and do that, the rest of those on your own. All right, so now that you have pulled together all your questions, you've started answering your questions, you're starting to figure out how it fits into the context of the larger narrative that's going on, or even the meta-narrative, which is talking about what's the whole story of the Bible and where does it fit into that process of telling the whole story about the Bible. You come back, you've answered the questions, you've done some history, some research through BibleHub.com, and you've pieced together all these things trying to discover what would the original listener have understood. What's that truth? What's that meaning? And then we move it over and say, how does that affect me today? Some basic questions to ask after you've done this homework, all right? The first question is, what is this now with my new understanding and research? What does this teach me about God? What does this teach me about Jesus? And what does this teach me about myself? And what am I going to do about it? When you wrap up all of those things, you're going to have a full and rich and robust understanding of those verses of Scripture. This is what I would recommend. Keep a journal. Write these things down. Do the study. Learn the Bible and let it change your life.